Hello and welcome. Today we address the big question: how happy is India's workforce? Well, as per a study late last year by the Happiness Research Academy, 70% of Indian workforce is not happy at work. 54% employees want to leave their jobs. So, what really must organizations focus on? What really is the need of the hour? And then, what really drives happiness at work? Well, we of course will decode this. Just yesterday, there was a recent study coming in by Morgan Stanley as well that India must grow at 12% to address the job skill mismatch. So, a lot of studies there, and the crux of it all really is then how do we decode workplace happiness? And to, of course, do this, I'm joined by Jaideep Kewalramani, Head of Employability, Business and COO at TeamLease Edtech. I'm also joined by Sanjeev Das, partner at EMA Partners. Thank you both for your time. Both of you look at those wanting to enter the workplace very, very closely, are aware of what employees today are seeking, what the youth today is seeking, as well as the skill mismatch then when the youth enter the workforce. So, Jaideep Kewalramani, I want to come to you on this one. When Morgan Stanley says that there is a job skill mismatch as per their study, what really is the need of the hour then for the youth when they're seeking these jobs as well as for the organizations?
Sure. Sakshi, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. To answer your question, from the first time job seeker, it is very important that the expectation setting and the counseling is done appropriately. In what to expect at the workplace, the nature of the job. There is a lot of gap between industry and academia, and also thanks to a lot of social media, a lot of first time job seekers have a vivid imagination of what the workplace would look like, what the job would look like, and what a boss would look like. But with kind of growing workplace diversity, one needs a reality check. And therefore, we encourage a lot of youth to take up internship and long term apprenticeships while they are studying so that they get a real feel of what they are getting into. And even at the workplace, when they enter, the manager and the human resources should take a lot of effort in making them settle in their workplace early on through buddyship programs, mentorship programs, giving them appropriate counseling, checking in with them that, hey, how are you doing? And those kind of initiatives will be very useful. And also from the first time job seeker, they should come in like a blank slate. Be very good
All
for
right.
them to kind of get a feel of what the environment is like before making their mind up.
Right. So that's really for first time job seekers and for new employees. Sanjeev Das, you look more closely at leadership roles, employees who have been in the workforce for a while. Your first thoughts on employees who are, who've been in the same organization sometimes for a while, employees who've been in the same industry for a while. Your thoughts really on what organizations then must focus on for these employees, as he was explaining, with workplace diversity, with a multi-generational workforce, with technology even. Things are truly changing. So what really do the leaders of today and tomorrow then need to focus on very differently?
Thanks, actually, because this is a very, very important questions which, uh, every senior leadership is kind of struggling with. Yeah. And especially given the fact that today the generation gaps are huge. Today you have, leaders who are at a level where they are dealing with millennials. They are they are working with Gen Zs, and there are also mid managers and senior managers of different levels altogether. What is important is, I think, is from an organization point of view, communication holds a very, very important key. When, and like what Jaideep said, when somebody walks into the organization, it is the responsibility of the leader to communicate absolutely, and communicate. See, sometimes it is better to over communicate as well, so that they feel involved, they feel accepted. So whether it's somebody who's joining at the junior level, or even if somebody is joining at the senior level. See, in a senior level, you are expected to kind of pick up the reins and start moving, or and hitting the ground. But still, then, if there is a proper clarity, there is proper communication, these
Mhm.
things, set the ball rolling for anyone. And I think that is something which is extremely, extremely important.
Right. Jaideep, do you agree? And also, as per a lot of other reports that we were reading, many are today seeking work life balance, open communication, as he very rightly was saying, as Sanjeev was very rightly saying, as well as a positive workplace culture in totality, really, which of course comes from communication, transparency, and studies also suggesting flexibility. So, do you agree? For those saying, okay, then what drives workplace happiness and what do organizations need to focus on? And how do employees then need to realign to this, workforce at the moment?
Sure. So, from an organization perspective, I think there is a lot of work and purpose misalignment today. If there is a focus on making sure that the objectives of the employee and the organization come together, and also we are in a multi-generational situation right now, like Sanjeev mentioned and you also remarked, we've got practically three generations of workforce, right from the boardroom to the entry level, working together. And at some point, we will have interns and apprentices coming from Gen Alpha as well. The second issue is that over a period of time, I mean, India has seen a lot of prosperity come in, and therefore the mindset of the manager and the employee relationship at the workplace has changed. Earlier, it was more of what options do I have, to today, I have a lot of options. Why should I stick with you? And therefore, recognition and respect at the workplace, the definition of that has changed. I'm not saying that the recognition and respect didn't exist earlier or doesn't exist today, but the definition of recognition and respect has changed. Today's youth want more of an instant gratification rather than delayed gratification. Of course, flexibility post COVID has become a expectation across several generations and several this thing. But more importantly, there is one element that the report did not cover, which is candor at the workplace, the ability to walk up and talk what's in your mind. But that is also paired with the other problem of the youth relying more on texting rather than speaking up. I mean, there is no substitute to sitting across the table, looking into the eye, and having a chat about what you really feel like. That's very important. Of course, organizations will develop work autonomy, build relationships, and create multi generational strategies. But I think sitting across the table and having the heart to heart conversation is extremely important. For that, you need the right workplace culture and also a little bit of coaching to the youth to speak their mind.
Right. Now, many reports are also suggesting that, look, the first step really is to measure this and have surveys and make happiness surveys really a norm as part of annual activities to truly look at how things are panning out for an organization. Do you agree, Sanjeev?
Now, while I address that question, I will also touch upon two things which you said. You spoke about culture, and Jaideep kind of mentioned very clearly about people walking up. You will walk up when you come to office. When you will walk up when you, and this kind of touches the most important criteria of, at the leadership level at which we work at. You can't have leaders working remotely, and you just can't have working remote. So, for example, a chief manufacturing officer cannot be working remotely. That person needs to be at the plant or at the headquarters. You know. So the point being is, while post COVID the world has changed, work from home or working remotely has become a norm, but still, there needs to be a very conscious effort by organizations to bring in people together. Your culture doesn't get built on Teams calls. Your culture gets built when you are with somebody in the room, speaking, deciding, deliberating. Those things are very, very important. Now, that is something which I want to kind of put across very, very clearly here. And of course, coming back to your question about surveys, yes, happiness. It's always said when we started our careers way back, we were told that if you enjoy your job, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's no more a job anymore. You start liking it. And when you start liking it, you start enjoying it. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, and there's a reason also, people, leaders or people have spent many years in a certain one organization. And why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that the organization takes an effort to rotate people across different functions. That
Mm-hmm.
brings something interesting in their careers altogether. Number
Mm-hmm.
two is also, uh, it's important. Yeah, you can have these surveys, you can have these all of this at the end, but then it is the leader's responsibility to bring in that. It is not an HR responsibility alone. It is
Mm-hmm.
the reporting manager. It is the leader's responsibility to kind of bring in that quotient of
Mm-hmm.
happiness in that employee, in that person, so that he
Mm-hmm.
feels belonged. He belongs. Today, the disconnect happens when the person's, and like what Jaideep said, everybody wants instant gratification today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, patience has become a scarce commodity. So,
Right.
therefore, it also depends on how you work with that individual or with the team to
Mm-hmm.
make them feel special. Yeah.
Right. Well, absolutely. Very, very interesting thoughts there. Really, thank you both for joining us and for sharing your initial thoughts on a whole host of these reports. And of course, we will continue to track not just workplace happiness, but also a lot, really, as far as you were mentioning new leadership roles are concerned, how employees need to realign as well, what organizations must focus on, and what really is the need of the hour to, of course, look at a happy workforce for organizations, for industries, and for, of course, India's youth coming in. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Welcome, Sakshi.
thank you. Welcome.